What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, it is Tuesdays with Turbo. That's actually on Tuesday, and for those keeping track, that is twice in a row. So, yeah, yeah, your boy's doing big things in 2025. What can I say? But yes, welcome to Tuesdays with Turbo. My name is Ryan Turbo Jackson. I am your insurance resource, and I like to do videos on insurance because a lot of people are not real. They don't really know what they're buying. So I like to do educational videos. I like to make things fun with trivia videos, but this one's a whole other animal. And what I mean by that is I'm going to give a couple disclaimers, and I don't want to see any of these comments in the comments section, so bear with me because this video is not made to have any political intent. This is not made to incite any conspiracy theories. And I've kind of went over and over in my head how I want to kind of structure this video, but I do think it's important with everything that's going on. So again, this is not a political statement. This is not to incite conspiracy theories. This is merely an educational video about how fire insurance here in Michigan differs from fire insurance in California. Okay? Again, no political stuff. No conspiracy stuff. That's not the intent. That's not the intent. And the reason I wanted to do this video is because there are massive differences in how Michigan's insurance policies cover fire in particular as compared to California. And with everything that's happening out there, there are a lot of folks that are scared. There are a lot of folks wondering, all right, well, if this company can do this out in California, when's the shoe going to drop for when it's going to happen in Michigan? So that's kind of why I wanted to do this video, and I'm going to go about it as best as I can because, like I said, I'm not trying to start arguments. I'm not trying to push any political agenda. This is just me basically educating folks. So keep that in mind as you watch this video. And I'm also going to throw out another disclaimer. I am not licensed to sell insurance in California. So this is merely just me doing research online. It has nothing to do with me actually being an expert on insurance in California. So keep that in mind. However, I am licensed here in Michigan and Indiana. So the things I'm going to talk about, when it relates to this area, I'm very well versed in. Been doing it over a decade. So that one I have a very, very vast knowledge of. So let's get started. And for those of you watching live, thank you. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them down in the comments, and I'll do the best that I can to answer them. And if I don't have an answer, we'll get you one. We will get you one. So let's jump into it. I'm going to say first and foremost that when it does come to fire insurance in California, it is a very unique situation. Michigan and Indiana here, it's kind of... It's pretty much the normal. Let's put it that way. Okay, and I'm going to, when we talk about fire insurance, I'm going to associate it or compare it to flood insurance. Okay, so I'm going to try to bring home a comparison of the two and kind of how it relates to your home insurance. So basically what we have is we have Michigan, who is not very wildfire prone. Yes, there are ones time to time, but California is very prone to wildfires. And as we've seen even in the past couple years, a handful of years, it seems like I know it's not true, but it seems like there's always part of California on fire. It's just the reason being is it's a much more dry climate as compared to Michigan. They have high winds being that close to the ocean, and they have frequent droughts. And where we see quote unquote wildfires here in Michigan tends to be in the summertime, just because in the winter, fall, and spring, it tends to be, the ground tends to be more saturated. We get more rain, and we can remember even a couple years ago here in Michigan, I wasn't cutting my grass because it would burn and die. And I believe it was a little bit like that this year, but not as much, just because the whole spring into the first part of summer was it seemed like it rained every weekend. So as far as being relatively new, we here in Michigan haven't seen a very big drought in quite a while that I can remember. Again, going completely off top of my head, but the conditions are different. Let's put it that way. The conditions are different. So what does this mean? What does this mean as far as your insurance? Well, basically, the way it boils down to is because these wildfires are so frequent in California, their normal home policy does not cover it. So you might be asking yourself, well, where do they get coverage if they want it? Well, they have to go to a different company that specializes in fire insurance. And the reason I said I'm going to try to compare this to flood insurance is because on all home policies, and I can say this with very, very, very high confidence, in Michigan and Indiana, flood activity is not covered on a normal home policy. So if you do want flood, or if your lender requires flood insurance, we have to go to a different company to get it. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Is it an added expense? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's one of those things where, we probably get 5, 6, 7 phone calls a day here at the office wanting to know why insurance premiums are so high. And if the insurance company was to include flood insurance or flood coverage on a regular home policy, those numbers would be quite a bit more expensive. And I can already hear folks saying, well, because I was at an old office, was tasked to try to to pretty much quote flood insurance for everyone in our book of business. So it was a very hard sell, because a lot of people are like, we really don't have a flood exposure. Why would we need flood coverage? So again, when it comes to the fire coverage in California, and from what I gather, it's actually where in some areas it's available as an additional purchase. In some areas it's not available at all. So at that point, there's just no coverage, and you would do basically what they call self-insure, where there's no coverage. So if anything does happen, you pay for the damages, you pay for the rebuild, you pay for all of it. So, and we all know, I mean, if you've ever been to California or know someone or a family member that lives out there, we all know everything is quite a bit more expensive when it comes to anything in California. So their insurance rates are already very, very high. Could you imagine the cost if the regular home policy included fire coverage? Yeah. Quite a bit expensive. And so basically what it comes down to is, here in Michigan and Indiana, if there is a stipulation, you yourself cannot start the wildfire, because that in essence would be arson. So keep that in mind. But if there is a natural occurring fire, or it started by someone not you, there would be coverage for your home. The full dwelling coverage would apply to a wildfire here in Michigan and Indiana. So as far as not having coverage here in Michigan and Indiana, if you have a regular home policy, you have fire coverage. You have fire coverage. California is a very, very unique situation. You could kind of, have a direct tie to, we've all heard companies pulling out of Florida, or companies not offering coverage for damages to hurricanes. It's a very similar situation. Very similar. And now here in Michigan, we don't have to worry, Michigan and Indiana, we don't have to worry about, hurricanes, but our similarity is a tornado, and our policies cover tornado damage. So again, some things that I would, if you are worried, if you are worried that your policy, if it covers fire, it does, it does. But the one thing that, instead of worrying about if your policy covers fire, is if your home has enough dwelling coverage. The cost of materials and everything to rebuild is already through the roof. One thing that I would highly, highly recommend is going over with your agent your dwelling coverage, because let's be honest, if there's a wildfire situation, it's going to affect not only the people who live here, but also the businesses. And when the supply, excuse me, when the demand for building materials is high, what does that do to the price? It increases as well. So having a little bit extra, if you are, if this is something you're absolutely worried about, excuse me, then have that conversation with your agent. They should be able to rerun a replacement cost estimator, or some companies have endorsements to give additional dwelling coverage. So that's my suggestion. So again, I cannot reiterate enough that Michigan, Indiana home policies do have fire coverage. And whether that's from a wildfire, a kitchen fire, or, anything that would set your house ablaze, aside from arson, because arson is not covered on any policy, then there would be coverage for partial loss, total loss, you name it. So, and that goes for every company that I have ever worked with in Michigan and Indiana. So rest assured that, and I can say with a lot of confidence that's not going to change anytime soon. Just because the frequency of a wildfire happening in Michigan is very low. Will it happen? Can it happen? Yeah. But I think as far as, kind of rating risk, we've had a lot of trouble with tornadoes and storms in the summer as compared to fires. So me personally, as a homeowner, I'm more worried about tornadoes, storms, weather damage as compared to a wildfire. So that's just my two thoughts, and I wanted to make this video to let people know that things are different here in Michigan and Indiana. And at one point I was licensed in Ohio and Illinois, and it's the same everywhere around here. Now again, the other states in particular, I wouldn't know, because I'm not licensed there. I've never done any business outside of these specific areas. So this is more of a, take a step back. I know there's a lot going on in the world, but this is something that we don't need to worry about, because it's taken care of. That is part of what you're paying for, is coverage from fire. So with everything going on in the world, there's plenty of other things to worry about, and this just isn't one of them. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is what I wanted to get on here and do today. Just because we personally haven't had a whole lot of questions about that, but I also wanted to set people's minds at ease, because I had a feeling that before too long there will be questions, and might as well get out in front of it. So rest assured, you and your property are covered in the event of a fire, wildfire, kitchen fire. It's pretty much all the same. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone have a great week. The weather is cold. It is nasty. So everyone stay safe. And you hear me always say, if you have elderly neighbors or family members, please check in on them, lend a hand, shovel a driveway, shovel a walkway, so it's easier for them to get in and out if they are getting in and out at all. If you're going to the grocery store, check in on them, see if they need anything. and let's all help each other through this frigid, and snowy and nasty week. So I will be back next week. Everyone have a good one, and I will see you next time.